Hello, and welcome to day 15 in week 3. This week we're going to be talking about reclaiming your mind away from your powerful instincts and bringing them more within your control. And today we're going to specifically focus on how to stay in the present moment, what most people these days call mindfulness. And mindfulness is just taking our brains away from wandering and kind of worrying about our problems and bringing them to the present moment. Because consciousness, the ability to think about thinking, is a great tool, but it causes us a lot of problems as well. It gives us the ability to worry about the future or get depressed and anxious about the past. Consciousness is a great thing to use, but you have to bring yourself into the present moment. And that means just doing what you're doing, starting to marvel at the ordinary things around you. Because when you do that, when you focus on whatever that hobby is, or a work project, or just a person across from you, you start to pick up and become more attuned on the small things, the small nuances that make life really cool. Because when you don't do that and your brain gets bored, two things happen. One, your serotonin levels go down, and your serotonin levels are just your satisfaction levels. So when you start to get bored or mind starts to wander, you get less satisfied, and your acetylcholine levels go up. And acetylcholine is your muscle activation network. So that means you get restless and you want to move. So when you start to fidget, that's because your brain's getting bored and it wants you to move on to some new project because your brain has a been there, done that attitude. But a wandering mind is really an unhappy mind. So when you bring in mindfulness, you're not being a Zen Buddhist all the time and just sitting around and meditating, but basically you're noticing what's going on around you without labeling it. Just accepting whatever's happening as it is what it is. Because when you're in that attunement, when your mind is basically right where you are, doing what you're doing, your cortical columns in your brain the familiar becomes unfamiliar. And when that happens, your dopamine levels go up. So you start paying attention. You become kind of high. It's kind of like smoking weed without any of the negative side effects. Because those cortical columns that run vertically through your brain, we take in sensory input from the outside world, and our brain kind of compares that to things that have happened in the past. And that's where our experience happens in the middle. So if something comes into our life that we feel like we've been there or done that, it's not exciting, then our brain will say, go start worrying about something else, start stressing about something else. But if we make the world around us unfamiliar at all the times, novel, then we start to have a high just by being alive, just by looking around us. That's what mindfulness is. It's when you start to get curious about the world. It's when you start to have a beginner's mind about everything, and you start to notice without labeling. Do what you're doing. Whatever you're doing, just be the best at it you can. Focus, pay attention, and your brain will be much happier. So for today's self-reflection, we're going to practice this new tool and try to apply it to everyday life and the things around us. That's all I have for today. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.